She couldn't stop herself. Her body burned with a craving so fierce it twisted her mind, forcing her to plead with any man she met. Married, single, young, old, it no longer mattered. 3 days ago, she was the prince's bride, the village's future queen, a girl so pure mothers used her as an example. Now, she was on her knees in the dirt before the village hunter, shaking, gripping his arm as she whispered, "Owen, please, I need you to touch me again, all over. Please, just help me." Day after day, Sarah moved through the village like someone haunted, searching for anyone whose touch might silence the unbearable heat burning between her legs. Her brother slapped her when she came to his door at midnight, whispering things no decent person would ever say. The priest shouted prayers over her as she writhed on the floor, unseen forces fighting to keep their hold on her. This wasn't madness. This was something far darker, something that began with a simple dinner invitation, something no one ever expected.
Once upon a time, in a small village surrounded by green forest, there lived a young woman named Sarah. She was the daughter of Mr. Peter and Mrs. Grace, and she had an older brother called David. Sarah was known throughout the village for her stunning beauty. People would stop and stare when she walked by. "She looks like an angel," they whispered. Her skin glowed warmly in the sunlight, and her smile could brighten anyone's day. But Sarah was not just beautiful on the outside. She had a heart of gold and worked harder than most girls her age. Every single morning, she woke up early to help her mother on the family farm. They would plant vegetables, water crops, and pull out weeds together under the hot sun. When evening came, Sarah would join her brother David to collect firewood from the forest. They would carry heavy bundles on their heads, laughing and telling stories as they walked home. After returning, Sarah always cooked dinner for her family without being asked. Her father Peter was very proud of her. "My precious daughter," he would say with a big smile. "One day you will marry a wonderful man who will treat you like the treasure you are." Because of Sarah's beauty and good behavior, many mothers in the village would tell their daughters, "Why can't you be more like Sarah? Look at how respectful and hardworking she is." This made Sarah even more loved by the older people in the community. However, not everyone was happy about Sarah's popularity. Some of the young women in the village felt jealous. When Sarah walked past them, they would roll their eyes and hiss quietly. "Why does she walk like she's so special?" one girl complained. "She thinks she's better than the rest of us," another added bitterly. Their eyes followed Sarah with anger burning inside. But Sarah always pretended not to notice. She had learned that avoiding trouble was better than fighting back. She would simply keep her head down and continue walking, refusing to let their mean words hurt her feelings. One blazing hot afternoon, Sarah was coming back from the market. She carried a large basket filled with fresh red tomatoes on her head. The sun beat down on her shoulders as she walked along the dusty road toward home. As she turned the corner, she saw a group of young women standing together, blocking the narrow path. Their faces looked hard and unfriendly. Sarah's heart beat faster, but she tried to walk past them calmly, hoping they would let her through without any problem. Suddenly, one of the girls stepped directly into Sarah's path and deliberately bumped into her with force. The basket flew off Sarah's head and crashed onto the ground. Tomatoes rolled everywhere, getting covered in dirt and dust. Sarah's eyes flashed with anger. "Why did you do that?" she demanded, her voice shaking with emotion. The girl who had bumped her smiled in a mean way. "It was just an accident," she said mockingly, while the other girls laughed loudly behind her. "No, it wasn't an accident," Sarah hurt back, her hands forming tight fists at her sides. The girls quickly circled around Sarah like wolves surrounding their prey. Sarah looked at their angry faces and realized this was planned from the start. They wanted to fight her and embarrass her in public. Sarah took a deep breath and decided to be the bigger person. She swallowed her pride and knelt down on the ground to pick up her scattered tomatoes. Maybe if she stayed calm, they would leave her alone. But the girls had other plans. As Sarah reached for the tomatoes, they began to step on them on purpose. Their feet crushed the red fruits, making the juice splatter everywhere. It stained the ground and Sarah's dress. "Stop that right now," a powerful voice suddenly shouted. Everyone turned around quickly. Standing there was Lisa, a young woman nobody in the village dared to be friends with. The girls immediately backed away from Sarah, their confidence disappearing like smoke. Lisa knelt down beside Sarah and helped her gather the few tomatoes that weren't completely destroyed. "Thank you so much," Sarah whispered softly, still feeling shaken by what had just happened. They walked together quietly until they reached Lisa's home. Lisa waved goodbye with a small smile, and Sarah continued walking to her own house. As she walked, Sarah's mind was full of questions. Why would Lisa help her? This was the same girl everyone feared and avoided. The villagers whispered terrible things about Lisa's mother, Mama Ruth. They said she was evil and practiced dark magic. People claimed she had been married 4 times, and each husband had died in strange and mysterious ways. Nobody could explain how or why. That night, after cooking a delicious dinner for her family, Sarah told her mother Grace about everything that happened at the market. Her mother's face became very serious and worry filled her eyes. "You must be very careful around that Lisa," she warned in a low voice. "Everyone knows what they say about her mother. An apple never falls far from the tree, my daughter." Sarah just smiled politely and nodded her head, but inside she felt confused. Lisa had been kind to her when nobody else was. Could someone with an evil mother still have a good heart? That same night, while Sarah slept peacefully in her bed, her new friend Lisa sat cross-legged on her sleeping mat. Her heart was beating fast with happiness and excitement. She kept thinking about the moment when she had spoken to Sarah earlier. Lisa smiled shyly to herself in the darkness. For years, she had wished for a friend. She wanted someone who wouldn't be afraid of her mother's dark reputation. Someone who would see the real Lisa, not just the daughter of the woman everyone feared. The next morning, when Sarah went to the stream to collect water for her family, she saw Lisa standing by the water's edge. Their eyes met across the flowing water and warm smiles spread across both faces. They talked and laughed quietly together as they filled their containers. Then they walked back home side by side. And from that special day forward, their friendship grew like beautiful flowers in a hidden part of the forest. They went to the market together, whispering funny jokes as they bought food from the traders. In the evenings, they collected firewood together, and their laughter would echo through the forest paths. But Sarah began to notice something that made her feel uncomfortable. Whenever Sarah and Lisa walked through the village together, something strange happened. Young men would slow down and stop whatever they were doing just to admire Sarah's beauty. "Beautiful girl, you shine like the sun in the morning," one man would say with a big grin. Another would bring small gifts, colorful beads, fresh coconuts, or roasted peanuts, anything to make Sarah smile at them. Lisa would always stand quietly to the side. During these moments, smiling shyly and waiting patiently for Sarah's admirers to leave so they could continue their walk home. Deep in her heart, Lisa prayed silently that maybe just one man would notice her too and say something kind, but nobody ever did. It wasn't because Lisa wasn't pretty. She was lovely in her own quiet way, with gentle eyes and a sweet face, but the villagers feared her mother, Mama Ruth, too much. The whole village still remembered the day Mama Ruth had chased Tom, the palm wine seller, with a sharp machete. She had screamed at him, calling him terrible names just because he came asking to marry Lisa. Since that frightening day, men treated Lisa like someone they shouldn't even look at. One sunny afternoon, as Sarah and Lisa were walking down the main village street, suddenly a loud commotion filled the air. Drums began beating and people started running towards the village square, shouting excitedly, "The prince is coming! The prince is passing through!" Voices called. The prince of the entire kingdom was traveling through their village with his royal guards. Immediately, all the villagers stepped aside respectfully and bowed their heads low. Sarah and Lisa did the same thing, bending down as the royal group passed. But then something unexpected happened. The prince suddenly stopped. His eyes locked on Sarah, and he stared at her as if her beauty had stolen all the air from his lungs. He couldn't look away. The prince whispered something quietly to one of his guards, who immediately rushed to where Sarah was standing. "The prince requests to speak to you," the guard announced formally. Sarah stepped forward nervously, her legs feeling weak. "Whose daughter are you?" the prince asked in a soft but deep voice that made her heart flutter. "I am Peter's daughter, your highness," she replied, bowing her head respectfully. The prince's eyes sparkled with wonder. "Your beauty is absolutely amazing. You look like a goddess who came down from heaven. You have stolen my heart completely." Sarah's cheeks turned red and her heart pounded so loudly she thought everyone could hear it. Meanwhile, Lisa stood off to the side, watching with the biggest smile on her face. She was blushing too, as if she had just spotted the most handsome person in the whole village. When the prince finally waved goodbye to Sarah and continued his journey, the two girls began walking home. The moment they were out of everyone's sight, Lisa couldn't control her excitement anymore. "Oh my goodness!" she screamed, jumping up and down like a little child who had just received the best present ever. "The prince has his eye on you. Do you understand what this means?" Sarah laughed nervously. "What does it mean?" "You're going to be queen!" she yelled, spinning around in circles with pure joy. Sarah covered her blushing face with her hands, feeling shy and embarrassed.
The next morning, Lisa walked excitedly to Sarah's family compound. Sarah welcomed her with a warm hug, and the two friends sat outside under a big mango tree, talking and giggling like sisters. Suddenly, a tall palace guard appeared and approached them. "Are you Sarah, daughter of Peter?" he asked respectfully. Sarah stood up quickly. "Yes, I am." The guard handed her a beautifully decorated bag. "These gifts are from the prince," he announced. Then he bowed politely and walked away. Sarah stared at the bag, completely shocked. "Lisa, the prince sent me gifts. "Yes," she whispered, her hands trembling with excitement. "Open it quickly," Lisa urged, her eyes shining with curiosity. They untied the bag together and their mouths fell wide open. Inside were new sets of cloth wraps, beautiful coral beads, gold jewelry, and other royal treasures that ordinary village girls would never dream of owning. The girls squealed with pure happiness. Sarah, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude, reached into the bag and pulled out a beautiful piece of cloth and a set of beads. "Here, take these," she said gently to Lisa. "You deserve beautiful things too." Lisa's eyes filled with tears of emotion. She hugged Sarah tightly. "Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much." But everything changed the moment Lisa reached her home. Still breathless with excitement, she ran inside to find her mother. "Mama, the prince is in love with Sarah. He even sent her expensive gifts today. Look, she gave me some." She held out the cloth proudly. Mama Ruth's face immediately became dark and angry. Before Lisa could say anything else, her mother grabbed the cloth and threw it back in her face hard. "Foolish child," Mama Ruth roared loudly. "Look at you, dancing and celebrating because the prince is cutting your friend, while you, yes, you, sit here doing nothing." "Mama," Lisa whispered, feeling hurt and confused. Mama Ruth stepped closer, her voice turning cold and sharp like a knife. "If you married the prince, if you became the queen, would you die?" She hissed the words angrily, then turned her back and stormed out of the hut. Lisa stood frozen in place, her heart twisting painfully in her chest. That night she lay awake on her sleeping mat, staring up at the dark ceiling. Her mother's harsh words kept repeating in her mind again and again. "If you married the prince, if you became the queen, would you die?" Questions swelled in Lisa's head. Was she the one who deserved the prince? Was she supposed to be in Sarah's position? Was her mother right? And just like that, a tiny seed of jealousy began to grow in her heart, quiet, poisonous, and hungry. As days passed, the prince's love for Sarah grew even stronger. Soon, the entire village knew about their relationship. Sarah spent most of her days at the palace now. The prince adored everything about her, her gentleness, her beauty, and her humble spirit. Yet, despite being so close, they remained respectful and pure, waiting patiently for marriage before any physical intimacy. This made the prince respect Sarah even more. One day, Lisa accompanied Sarah to visit the palace. The moment Lisa stepped to the tall gate, her eyes widened in complete awe. The palace was massive and magnificent. Its walls were decorated with rich paintings, and tall warriors guarded every entrance. Lisa felt very small and overwhelmed. A strange desire began growing inside her chest. What would it feel like to live here instead? She thought to herself. Mama would be so proud if I could make the prince marry me. She smiled and listened when Sarah told her stories about how kind and gentle the prince was. But deep inside, the seed her mother had planted continued to grow slowly and silently, turning admiration into desire and turning desire into burning jealousy. When the prince finally asked Sarah to marry him, the news spread through the village like a bushfire. Some villagers celebrated with genuine joy, excited that their beloved Sarah was going to become their queen. Others whispered behind closed doors, "She's too soft and gentle to be a queen. Will she be strong enough for palace life?" But their opinions didn't matter at all. The prince had chosen Sarah, and true love had sealed their destiny. Soon, wedding preparations began in full force. Sarah became extremely busy with countless tasks. She had to send out invitations, choose fabrics, meet with tailors, and attend many traditional ceremonies. Days flew by, and she hardly had any time to see Lisa. This hurt Lisa deeply. She's not even queen yet, and she has already forgotten about me. What will happen when she finally becomes queen? Will she ever look my way? As Lisa sat lost in these dark thoughts, Mama Ruth burst into the room, laughing in a mocking way. "Ha ha ha ha! Our dear Lisa, why are you sitting here all alone? Why aren't you helping your precious friend, our future queen? Or has she already abandoned you?" Lisa clenched her fist tightly and stared at the floor, refusing refusing to look into her mother's eyes. Mama Ruth's voice dropped to a low, dangerous whisper. That wedding must not happen. You deserve that throne more than anyone else, and I have a plan to make it yours. Mama, stop it, Lisa shouted, cutting her off mid-sentence. I am tired of all your evil plans. You are the reason no man in this village even looks at me. With those words, she stormed out angrily, leaving Mama Ruth staring after her.
The next morning, Lisa reluctantly agreed to follow Sarah to the market to buy more fabrics for the wedding. As they walked through the village, people bowed respectfully to Sarah. "Our future queen," they called out. "Mother of our land, the chosen one." Young girls flocked around Sarah like butterflies, praising her beauty, touching her hands gently, laughing and chatting as if they had always been her best friends. Lisa stood quietly nearby, feeling anger boil in her chest like hot water. These same girls, she thought bitterly, these are the exact ones who crushed Sarah's tomatoes at the market before, and now they are worshipping her like she's a goddess. Each smile Sarah gave and each compliment she received felt like a fresh stab in Lisa's heart. Her chest tightened painfully and her hands grew ice cold. The jealousy she had once fought against now rose up like deadly poison flowing through her veins. Unable to take it any longer, Lisa turned around suddenly and walked away without saying goodbye, leaving Sarah confused behind her. When Lisa reached home, she found her mother stirring a pot of soup over the fire. Without even greeting her, Lisa marched straight up to her. "Mama, what's this plan you were talking about?" she demanded. Mama Ruth looked up slowly, her eyes narrowing. And what brought this sudden change of heart, my daughter?" But Lisa ignored the question completely. Her voice was firm and almost cold. "Just tell me the plan now." Mama Ruth smiled, a slow, dangerous smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Invite Sarah to dinner tomorrow evening. After that, leave everything else to me." Lisa nodded, though uncertainty flickered in her eyes like a candle in the wind. A small part of her knew this was terribly wrong. A part of her knew she was stepping into complete darkness. But jealousy had clouded her good judgment, swallowing her kindness and slowly turning her into exactly what the villagers always whispered. She will always be like her mother. An apple doesn't fall far from its tree. That evening, Lisa invited Sarah for dinner at her home. Sarah was genuinely excited. Finally, she thought happily, a quiet moment with my friend after weeks of busy wedding preparations. Mama Ruth greeted Sarah with an unusually wide smile as she served their meal. Sarah hesitated for a moment. Mama Ruth had never smiled at her like that before. "Maybe she's just happy for me," Sarah told herself, pushing away the uncomfortable feeling. The three of them chatted, laughed, and ate together. "This food is absolutely delicious, Mama Ruth," Sarah said gratefully. Mama Ruth only smiled mysteriously and said nothing in response. After dinner, Lisa walked Sarah outside, gave her a tight hug, and waved goodnight. As Sarah walked away into the darkness, Lisa remained standing at the entrance. A heavy knot was forming in her stomach. She had no idea what terrible effect her mother's plan would have on Sarah. Fear slowly began creeping into her heart like cold fingers. In the middle of that night, Sarah suddenly woke up drenched in sweat. Her body trembled uncontrollably. There was a burning heat deep inside her and a strange urge, fierce, desperate, and completely overwhelming. She tried to breathe deeply. She tried to calm herself down. Nothing worked at all. By morning, the urge had grown so violent and powerful that Sarah couldn't even stay indoors. Before she knew what was happening, she burst out of her house like someone possessed by an evil spirit. On the forest path, Sarah spotted Owen, the village hunter. "Owen, please, I need you right now," she cried desperately, grabbing his hand with surprising strength. He stepped back, completely shocked. "Sarah, what are you saying? You're about to marry the prince." But before he could finish speaking, Sarah threw herself at him. Her body was being controlled by a force she couldn't fight. Owen was terrified and confused, but she was absolutely unstoppable. When everything ended, he sat there shaking, unable to understand what just happened. He had no idea that the force controlling Sarah wasn't anything ordinary or natural. Sarah returned home and collapsed on her sleeping mat. Streams of tears flowed down her face as she stared at the ceiling. She had just lost something precious to a man she barely even knew just days before her royal wedding. "What is happening to me?" she whispered, trembling all over. Later that day, she went to the palace, hoping the prince would somehow calm her troubled heart. But the prince was away with his father on important business
business. Sarah lay down on the prince's bed, trying desperately to rest, but then the burning sensation returned, even fiercer than before. Desperate and helpless, she ran out of the room wildly. She spotted one of the palace guards walking into a small chamber. Without thinking at all, she followed him inside, and just like that, it happened again. But even that wasn't enough to satisfy the curse.
By nightfall, Sarah decided to sleep at the palace. When she lay beside the prince in his room, the terrible fire inside her flared up again. She reached for him, panting and trembling violently. "Sarah, what is this?" the prince asked, gently but with alarm. "We agreed to wait until our wedding night. I can't wait anymore," she gasped desperately. Before he could stop her, she undressed quickly and forced herself onto him. She was driven by an urge she absolutely couldn't fight or control. Again and again she demanded more, her eyes wild with desperate need. Before the roosters began crowing at dawn, the prince finally pushed her away in complete horror and disgust. "I thought you were pure. You're behaving like a wild animal," he shouted angrily. "Leave this palace immediately and never return." The prince ordered his guards to throw Sarah out. Refusing to listen to her tearful apologies and desperate pleas, Sarah staggered out as the heavy palace gate slammed shut behind her with a loud bang. By morning, the entire village was buzzing with gossip. Some people whispered quietly, some laughed cruelly, and some felt genuine pity for her. "The prince threw her out. So much for our future queen," one person said mockingly. "I always knew she was pretending, acting like she was better than the rest of us. I heard she has been with half the men in the village." Back at home, Sarah cried until her voice faded. Her mother held her, confused and heartbroken, but Sarah couldn't bear to speak the truth. Meanwhile, in Mama Ruth's compound, there was celebration. Mama Ruth danced around the hut, smiling with wicked satisfaction. Lisa forced a smile, but guilt gnawed at her heart. "Mama, what we did is unfair. Oh. Sarah is my friend." Mama Ruth grabbed her shoulders. "You did what was best for us. Listen carefully. The throne is yours now for the taking. If you follow my instructions, you will become the next queen of this kingdom." She began to coach her daughter on how to win the prince and how to get him to marry her. The next morning, Lisa went to the palace with a basket of fruits. She knelt before the prince. "My prince, I am deeply sorry for what my friend has done. If I had known she was having affairs with other men, I would have told you." The prince's face hardened. Lisa lowered her head, her voice trembling. "Please forgive her. I know she has disgraced you." She continued visiting the prince, bringing meals, checking on him, comforting him. Slowly, the prince's anger softened. He allowed her into his presence, and slowly, Mama Ruth's plan began to sail. Lisa continued visiting Sarah from time to time, always wearing a mask of sympathy. She held her while she cried, comforting her with soft words. She even helped her to look for men whenever the uncontrollable urge returned. Sarah trusted her completely, unaware that she was the very reason her life had shattered. Sarah kept wandering through the village, begging for attention from any man, old, young, married, single. The rumors grew louder each day. Such shame! Is this not madness? Who did this to her? When the rumors had reached her family, they didn't believe a word of it. "Not Sarah, not the daughter we raised," her mother said, her voice trembling through tears. "God, why is this happening to us?" One evening, Sarah sat outside her house, exhausted from the day's torment. Her mother approached her with a solemn expression. "Sarah, have you heard?" She paused, then delivered the blow. "Lisa is getting married to the prince." Sarah froze, her mouth open, but no sound came out. "What? How? How is that possible?" she whispered, her heart breaking into pieces. That night, she could not sleep. She cried until her pillow was soaked. The betrayal felt like poison running through her veins. The friend she trusted, marrying the man she once loved, but almost immediately, the familiar burning urge returned stronger, fiercer, maddening. Sarah's mind clouded. She felt like she was drowning in a darkness she couldn't escape. In desperation, she tiptoed to her older brother, David's room. He looked up, surprised. "Davy," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Please, just touch me small, even if it's just the tip." Davy's eyes widened in horror. Without thinking, he delivered a hot, resounding slap across her face, one that nearly reset her senses. "Sarah, what is wrong with you?" he shouted, trembling. By morning, David told their parents everything. That was when they knew for once and for all that this was no ordinary matter. They wasted no time. They took Sarah straight to the parish. The priest was shocked when he saw her condition. He immediately began to pray, sprinkling holy water and commanding the strange force tormenting her to leave, but the battle was fierce. He called for help from bishops, prophets, pastors, anyone who could strengthen the prayer. They prayed for hours. Voices rose. The ground
ground trembled beneath Sarah as she screamed, cried, and shook uncontrollably. Then suddenly a heavy weight lifted from her body. Her breathing steadied, her eyes cleared, her mind returned. Just like that, after weeks of agony, Sarah was free. Her parents collapsed to their knees, thanking God through tears.
Meanwhile, at the palace, celebrations filled the air. Lisa and the prince were getting married. Drums beat loudly. The villagers were shocked. How is it possible that Lisa, the daughter of the evil woman, is getting married to the prince? They whispered. Mama Ruth was the happiest person there, happier than the bride and groom combined. She walked around with pride, boasting to everyone who would listen. Did I not tell you my daughter was destined for greatness? But almost immediately, a deafening thunder cracked across the sky. The ground trembled. A violent wind swept through the palace courtyard, and the lively celebration fell into sudden, terrifying silence. Before anyone could understand what was happening, Lisa and Ruth screamed and fell to the ground, clutching their bodies as if invisible whips were striking them. Their voices echoed across the palace walls. "Please forgive me," Lisa cried, rolling on the floor as tears and dust stained her face. "It wasn't my idea, it was my mother. She fed Sarah something. It made her lose her senses. My mother fed Sarah a curse." The entire crowd gasped in shock. Women covered their mouths, men shook their heads, the palace guards stepped back. Even the prince stood frozen, unable to believe the confession he had just heard. But before Lisa could say another word, Mama Ruth began convulsing violently. Her eyes rolled back and she shook uncontrollably, as if a powerful force was pulling her away. Villagers screamed and scattered. Within seconds, Mama Ruth collapsed completely lifeless. The courtyard fell silent, and then, almost as if something snapped inside her, Lisa ran mad. She leapt to her feet, laughing hysterically, pulling at her hair, tearing her royal gown and dancing wildly around the courtyard. People watched in horror as she stumbled through the palace gate, shouting to voices only she could hear. It was the final confirmation that karma never sleeps. Sarah was innocent. Everything she suffered had been the result of Mama Ruth's wickedness. Though the village felt deep guilt, Sarah could not stay in the place where her name had been destroyed. She quietly moved to the city to live with her aunt. Years later, she met a kind businessman who truly loved her. They married, and Sarah finally found the peaceful, honorable life she always deserved. The moral of this story is that jealousy destroys the person who carries it. We urge you to always choose kindness, because every destiny shines in its own time. Hey friends, what did you think about this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear from you. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our amazing stories. Also, check out the next incredible story showing on your screen right now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.